You are listening to Veterans Action Report on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. I'm your host, Nick, coming to you live from St. Paul, Minnesota.
And I'm Andrew Canales, coming to you live from Evergreen, Colorado.
Every day, veterans are struggling with many issues spanning from homelessness to mental health crisis, often leading to 22 veterans a day taking their own lives. There are veterans all around the U.S. leading the fight to help guide our brothers and sisters to a better life. We will bring you stories from all around the country telling tales of veteran struggles and triumph. Every episode benefits veteran-run nonprofits Warriors Next Adventure, helping veterans fight PTSD through recreational therapy and new adventures. And Houses for Warriors, helping solve the homeless crisis, leading veterans to a better lifestyle. Good afternoon and welcome to Veterans Action Report on KGRA Digital Broadcasting. Thanks again to KGRA Digital Broadcasting for giving us this time slot. We are a public service show, and this is free. If you want to listen on KGRA, you can listen for free, which is awesome. You can also listen on YouTube and Facebook, and eventually I'll get to uploading everything so you can listen on Spotify, iHeartRadio, and any other podcast thing. So as all of you know, I am the founder of Warriors Next Adventure. We help veterans with PTSD and suicide prevention, and we utilize this show to help us kind of get the word out. We help vets in many different facets. We have a bunch of different programs, such as the Minnesota Wolf Dogs, where you get veterans to play with wolves. We have the street stock, the dirt track race cars. We have 5 race cars, which is awesome. So veterans not only get to work on the car, learn how to work on the car, learn how to build engines, but they also get to race as well, which is awesome. There's no warm-ups though, so you just got to get out there and do it. So don't crash my car. And then on top of that, we have the jiu-jitsu program. We get veterans involved in jiu-jitsu. We also have the mountain climbing division, where every year we go climb one mountain. So next year we're actually climbing Mount Rainier with Veterans Action Group. So Veterans Adventure Group. Man, I'm sorry, guys. So these guys are awesome. They've every year they do at least one mountain climb to Mount Rainier, which is amazing. I had a veteran reach out to me and said that, it's been his life dream to climb Mount Rainier. So I said, well, let me make a phone call. I called him back 2 days later, said, hey, we're climbing Mount Rainier next year. So we're having 3 people go with us. So it's myself and 2 other veterans. We have slot for 1 more veteran. What we're going to do in February, we're actually going to do the fundraising lottery. So the first person to raise $500 or more, which is not that much, right? Start a Facebook fundraiser, start a GoFundMe, something along those lines. And the first person to raise $500 gets an all expenses paid trip to Washington to climb Mount Rainier. Now, we're also climbing mountains in Colorado next year. So what we're going to do is from there, we're going to have the first 5 people who raise $500 for that get to go climb in Colorado. So if you are the first to raise $500 and you do not want to climb Rainier, but you want to climb in Colorado, that slot is yours. The next person to raise $500 will actually get that slot to climb Rainier. So, which is pretty awesome. The other organization this radio show benefits is Houses for Warriors. Houses for Warriors is a nonprofit over in Colorado helping the veteran homelessness population. They have what's called the Warrior House, which is a house that they rent out. And they have, I believe, 6 to 8 beds inside that house that they can get veterans off the streets, which is absolutely amazing. HUD-VASH unfortunately denied them, so they went out and raised the money themselves. They raised $60,000 in one night, and that covers a whole year's worth of rent. So the cool thing is, on top of that, they put them through a program to essentially get them to graduate, to get out of this program and get into their own apartment. Kind of get off on their own. So this program is not only getting veterans off the streets, but it's also teaching them how to get off on their own, which is awesome. So today, I just want to let you guys know we have there's Chris. So Chris is the guy that pushed me about Mount Rainier. So get working out, bro. Start doing stair steppers. So today I have on one of the other teams that is rowing across the Atlantic Ocean with us. So Fight or Die, which is the shirt that I'm wearing. We have 4 Air Force veterans rowing from Spain to Antigua, and we'll be the first all Air Force team for the United States rowing across the ocean, which is awesome. And Team Emotive is a group of couple vets and a couple non-vets, but they're very supportive of the veteran community. And I wanted to have them on to kind of just talk about some of the struggles that veterans are having in other countries as well, because I know it's not just the United States. So let's bring these guys on and we'll get a little bit more in depth. What is going on, guys? How are you?
Evening, Nick.
Hi.
So, Jason, since you're the skipper, I'm going to have you start off. Why are you rowing a boat across the ocean?
I think it's very similar. What you guys are doing over there is once veterans become veterans and leave the military, it almost becomes like you've passed your use by date. And over here, it's no different to you. Is that the actual military support for veterans is almost non-existent. It's a lot of self-help and various other bits and pieces. So we're rowing across the ocean for two reasons. One is to raise money for Veterans at Ease, which is a charity that we're two of us are beneficiaries of. Gareth, unfortunately, can't with us tonight, was the CEO of, and Phil is a great supporter of. So we're raising funds for them. And then more importantly, we are rowing across the ocean to prove that you can come from this really dark place of very poor mental health and come through it and prove that there's life after poor mental health and potential addiction and suicidal thoughts, etc., and do something that's quite incredible with yourself and your brain and your body. So yeah, so we're doing it to prove that. Also, we're doing it to prove that smaller charities like yourself as a non-profit can really make a difference with the money that they get. I do this like in the States, but every now and then, Gareth, the CEO, got the idea when he was sat at home and he was almost mugged in his living room by a charity saying, if you give X amount of money, this girl will never have to walk 5 miles every day each way to get water. And it's an advert that's been running in the UK for 30, 40 years. And this young girl, in one guy's or another, is still walking to get water every day. And Gareth thought, well, actually, I've got a charity that's making a difference and we've not been around that long. So why don't I take some beneficiaries and prove that charities can really, really make a difference? And that's where the idea came from.
Well, think about it like this. Like, you guys, football for you guys is obviously different than football for us, right? But we're all watching football, right? We all have a team that we're a part of. How many of you guys have been to a soccer game and when a goal is scored, you guys just start jumping up and down and screaming and yelling, right? As an experience that all you guys have likely had, right? Or whatever cricket or I don't know, all you weird British people play. But think about it like this. That's your team, right? When that team scores, you guys win, right? So what we're doing, obviously you guys are doing as well. Like we are that team for these veterans, right? We are your team. And so now they have somebody to cheer for. It's like we're like them, one of us, right? And so now you guys get to essentially be that motivation for other veterans, which is absolutely beautiful. I love what you guys are doing. Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I spent 13 years in the army, and I struggled really poorly with my mental health when I left, and I left in 2016, and when I struggled, I went to see my normal doctor, and then I got put in the system of the NHS. But don't get us wrong, the NHS is great when it comes to physical problems, but you get put on waiting list after waiting list after waiting list for things that are not visible. And within a week, I was sat in front of Gareth as my therapist after getting in touch, after being on a waiting list for 3 to 6 months for the NHS. So
through Veterans at Ease, or was it a different program?
Yeah, through Veterans Ease. I got in touch with them on the Monday, and on the following Thursday, I was sat in front of Gareth at Veterans at Ease having my first therapy session.
So it's actually effective.
100%. 100%.
I love that, man. I love that. So what has that organization done for you?
It's given my life back. It's given me a meaning. Because at my low point, I felt nothing. I didn't have nothing to live for. Even though I had family, I felt like I was just obsolete. There was nothing there. And Gareth and Veterans at Ease have given me the new lease of life sort of thing, and they've given me a reason to be here again.
That's amazing.
And
I love it.
And I want that feeling to go to other people that potentially may be in the same boat or a similar boat as me, not physically, but in a similar boat as me, to get the reinvigoration again.
Yeah. Well, what you guys are doing too is it's not only like, yeah, we're doing crazy cool stuff, right? Like when people always tell me, well, you're doing all these things, what does it do, right? like, yeah, I get to race cars and everything like that. It's fun, but the best part is like when you actually see what you're doing positively affect another veteran, and you know that they're starting to get what you got when you finally started to do it, you know that their life is starting to change, and it feels really good to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So, and then on top of that, with you guys on here talking about your mental health, it's man, what was that hashtag you guys used earlier? What are your hashtags that you guys been throwing out there? I saw one and I was just like,
It's
oh
not,
my God, I love that.
it's
It's
not
not
weak.
weak to speak.
Yes, it's not weak to speak. I love that. That's seriously one of the best hashtags I've seen when it comes to like the mental health aspect. I love who came up with that.
Jason.
That's amazing. So, Phil, tell us a little bit about yourself. We're going to dig into some more of the mental health aspects of what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm sort of the fourth man, if you like. When someone couldn't make it, they managed to get me to come on board. So I spent my sort of working career actually as a supplier to the armed forces, so making parts for armored fighting vehicles, track and turrets for tanks, and counter mine and counter ID products, such as mine rollers. I think you call them Spark out there.
Mm.
So I've been in the defence business a long time, and I met Gareth, who was helping me when I first rode the Atlantic back in 2018-19, and he helped me raise some money, and we kept in contact. And when someone couldn't make it on this trip, he asked me, and it sort of was about the same time that I was meant to be rowing the Arctic Northwest Passage, and that was deferred due to ice
Sure.
and COVID issues. So
Did you tell them no, or did you jump right on and say yes?
I was trying to say no for a long time, but there was a weird sort of story where Gareth was telling his backstory to an audience, and he mentioned that his mental health issues came from going to Bosnia with the United Nations and his reconnaissance vehicles sliding off the road. No, they were tracked vehicles. And I realized actually that I was the manufacturer of those tracked vehicles. I ran the company which supplied the product, which maybe in some way led to the issues he had. So, whilst we didn't design them, we were certainly responsible for making them. So there's some sort of like link there. And I realized, he's asking me. And really, us manufacturers, we also support the military, not just when they're in service, but when they come out. As Jason said, people just come out and there isn't that support mechanism in place. And to be honest with you, lots of manufacturers don't realize that. We're too busy out there making our products, making our profits, rather than thinking about what happens when people leave the service. So I think I've made a good call. My wife doesn't think so.
The other day I told my daughter, I was like, hey, what do you think about me rowing across the ocean? She just goes, I don't know. And she just walked away. I'm like, dude, give me something. Come on. This kid sees me climbing mountains and like racing and doing all this crazy stuff. So she just like, I could tell her I cured cancer. She go, okay. I guess she was just winking. She's like, that's just dad doing dad things. But like my, luckily my girlfriend's pretty supportive of this. And then my row partners, their wives are extremely supportive. So it's like, it's really nice when you actually have somebody who supports your crazy side, But the beautiful part is you think about it like this, like, our ancestors, no matter where you came from, our ancestors were all explorers, right? Why do you think that they continue to explore, right? That wanderlust, we all have that inside of us, right? But nobody feeds it anymore. And so it's like, this is like the ultimate wanderlust. We're going in the middle of the ocean. Well, Phil, but like we're going in the middle of the ocean. I think one of the things that I'm most excited for is just the silence from everything. What about you guys? What's the most important thing?
Like, just to pick on your explore a bit there, and I've worked it out that in week 2/3 of the race, when all the boats are spread out with that 600 mile between first and last, if there's no other ships in that area within that circle of ocean rowing boats, the only other person that will be near us, it's not involved in the race, ocean rowers or support yacht, the support yacht would be the man in the International Space Station when they fly over.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing.
Many places on the planet that you can explore that these days, and who would want the queue to go to the top of Everest?
I know. Like, how nuts is that? This is the fact that like the closest human beings to us are in space. That's insane.
You can actually see it because the sky is so clear and you can see all the stars, everything. You can actually see the International Space Station.
That's amazing.
How weird it is.
I would told the guys like, hey, we should bring a telescope. Like, we're not packing a telescope just so you can look at it. I was like, come on, like, no, space, Nick, space. How is your guys' training going? What are you guys doing for training?
So we're doing a lot of strength and conditioning individually. We're spread out. We're obviously not spread out as much as you guys in the States are, but busy lives, and obviously you've still got to keep the family points in for later on in the year when you disappear. So we're doing a lot of individual training. We've got our next, I think, in just under a month, we're back on the sea for 3 weeks.
Okay.
We've done one.
Are you staying out for all 3 weeks, or?
No. We the support over here has been absolutely wonderful. So there's a couple of marinas local to us that give us the use of the marinas for nothing.
Oh, nice.
So use the slipway, overnight berthing, and storage of the vehicle, storage of the trailer, etc. So our plan is to get the rest of our 120 hours boxed off in that period. We've done one 30-hour row, which is quite cool. The ironic bit is, and I'll tell you now before the rest of the lads take the mickey out of me, the only sailor on the boat was the only person to get seasick.
That's hilarious.
So, but,
you did power on like a trooper, though, mind.
Yeah, I am the skipper. I do have to lead by example. I think one of the things that's certainly gone through my therapy did, and I think me getting seasick and what I did on that is when I was going through my addiction and poor mental health, Jason would always default to the path of least resistance. No matter what I was doing, it was a path of least resistance and potentially most gain for me. I've learned now that the path of least resistance isn't always the best way for a different type of gain.
Sure.
On that day, the old Jason would have gone, yeah, I'm seasick. No, I'm not getting up. I'm not going to bother.
Yeah. It's like, I'm done.
Yeah, the new Jason was very much, well, I'm not a passenger on this boat. If I don't row, somebody else has to pick up the slack.
Exactly.
So it was a case of taking a bucket, swill it out a mouthful of water, start rowing again. But it just that just demonstrates how far that I've come, and I know Chris is very similar to me because part of this building up to the row is we always talk about how we are, how we're feeling, how we have felt.
Good.
And it's something we don't tend to do day-to-day life unless you've actually been to that rock bottom place.
Yeah.
I think Phil was maybe a bit taken aback that the amount of man hugs Phil gets off us is pretty phenomenal. Because all we do is hug.
Well, the thing is too is when you start talking about mental health more often, it makes so many people uncomfortable. I love making people uncomfortable, like especially with like you guys. I'm sure you guys know some of my story, but like when I attempted suicide in 2015, I decided that I needed to figure out everything that was wrong with me. And one of the main things I realized is like I suppress everything, right? And that's why so many guys think that like, well, we can't say anything, because I'm sure in the British military, how do I say, is it the British military or the English military? What do I say?
Right, yeah. British
Okay,
military.
cool. I just want to make sure. I've never been there, so I don't really know. Like England, I just learned that that Scotland was connected to the same island. I thought it was a separate. I don't know. The United States isn't really good in education when it comes to geography. You know what I'm saying?
There's always a host over here for you, buddy. If you want to come across and experience quaint old England.
So you know how they do the award ceremony in England? We'll be there. So we decided that we're gonna go. So no matter what, if we do it in 49 days, we'll be the fastest American force to row across the ocean. We'll already be the first all Air Force team, and I actually recently found out I'll be the first testicular cancer survivor to row across the ocean, which is kind of I didn't really want that, but I mean I'll take it, I guess.
Definitely.
But
isn't that just another string to your bow and another facet of what you are? And
on top of that, and it's like weight reduction too.
Yeah, but it's almost another group of people that you've now got a chance to be an inspiration to.
Yeah, and I didn't think. I didn't think about that until maybe like 2-3 months after my surgery. Like as Jason, I talked to you about it, but I was, they had a lump in my lung that they ended up finding, so I thought I had lung cancer too. and it kept getting bigger and bigger, and it got up to like 6 millimeters. And they said once it gets to like 10, they're gonna cut it out, biopsy, and I'd have to go through radiation and chemo. And I'm like, I got to row across the ocean. Like, I don't have time for this. Can you guys just cut it out now? Let's get this going. Like, it doesn't work like that, Nick. Right? And then somebody posted something along the lines that there was a guy who had testicular cancer, and he was telling me how he just like he can't find his manhood and all this. I'm like, I don't feel like that at all. Like, I'm climbing mountains and still doing crazy stuff. Like, how do I motivate these guys now? So it's like, all right, well, it's just one more fight I need to fight, and I'm totally cool with that. So I think I've sent like 7 emails to Lance Armstrong, so I'm trying to get on his podcast so I can actually utilize that, because he did a couple things with one nut, so I figured I can kind of relate to him.
And now you're running ocean with 3 other nuts.
Oh my God! Well, we keep saying it's a team of 4, sack of 7. So, and the best part is too, when I got cancer, not one veteran called me like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry." Like, all of them were calling me lefty and one nut and stuff. It's like that's the support that I need, right? Like, I don't want to be looked at as if like I'm struggling now, because I'm not. I was in a race car 3 days after surgery. I mean, I ended up tearing my abdomen because I didn't listen to the doctor and take 2 weeks of bed rest. But hey, it's whatever. I got things to do. So, my buddy Greg, one nut wonder. Bastards. So let me ask you one more question. So I have a question for Phil here. So Phil, where was it? Gareth's a veteran too, right? Yeah. So Phil, you're the only non-vet going. So I want to ask you a question. What's it like being surrounded by 3 inappropriate veterans all day, every day?
Well,
How do you handle them, and how does it affect your mental health? Because I know we can be a lot.
I think one thing I noticed from the sort of, obviously the fundraising at the moment is going to lots of events to raise money from the public, and what I realise is they're part of a big club, in that lots of people come up to them who've shared equivalent experiences, and there's lots of people who just come up and donate and not say anything. Some will come up and actually pull them to one side and start maybe downloading something about their own situation. But yeah, they are part of a club which we civvies, us in civilian life, aren't part of. Yeah. It may be that they go to the Army Navy rugby match, or they do something else, but they're always part of that club. So I think hopefully that's one thing which sometimes brings them together. So when your mates are ringing you up and talking about your odd ball, if you like, it's your mates, and that mates can be a massive club stretching for you all the way across America, and for all the different services. So I think that's something that the guys have got. I don't know what it's like living with them. I'll be sharing the first class cabin with Chris, which I'm looking forward to, which is the bow cabin. It's got a bit more space, a bit more luxury, room for a little flat screen TV.
Do you guys have?
But I won't see much of him because, of course, we'll be swapping shift.
Sure.
So we'll say good morning, we'll say good night, and that will be it. So I'll spend most of the time, I think, with obviously Jason and Gareth, and it'll be interesting to get to know them. Over less than 49 days. If you're taking 49 days, we'll be out there for a bit less than that, I think.
Oh yeah, you guys have R45, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys will absolutely beat us. I think we're starting first though, because there's only 2 boats in the open class. So I told them if we don't win this open class, I'm like, I might have to jab a hole in their boat, to make sure we win this one. You know what I'm saying? No, but no, I think we start first or second, and then what is it, 5-minute increments or something like that, 15-minute increments.
3, I think. There's that many boats this year.
Oh, okay. Was it like 46 or something like that?
I think it's down to 42 now. I think it's going to deferred for various reasons. I think.
I'm sure there's a couple that dropped out. So, Chris, what made you want to do this?
To be fair, I got asked off Jason and Gareth to come on board as a spare man to start with. So, thinking, I'll not end up going, so I'll be a spare man. I'll come and I'll do the training and whatnot. 2 weeks later, Chris, you're on board. Somebody's dropped out. You're on board. I'm like, oh no. But
So how did you prepare for that switch? Like, are you married?
not anymore.
Okay. So do you have like a girlfriend or thing?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, but
So
luckily,
what does she think about all this?
she came on board after I'd already agreed to do it, so she's got no choice.
Oh, there you go.
But in all
That's
fairness, though, she does come along to near enough every single fundraiser and help fundraise and everything as well.
that's amazing.
So
So
I've got full support of her.
that's amazing. That's always good. It's hard to get full support when you're doing something so stupid to so many people, you know? It's
Yeah.
like, how do you convince your family to row across the ocean? So I just went up and said, "Hey, I'm rowing a boat across the ocean." She just goes, "Okay. Um, when?" I'm like, December. I was like, all right. We were actually supposed to row in 2023. But Fight or Die tries to host a team every year, and the 22 team dropped out. So I'm like, we'll take it. So we moved up a year. Because with what we do, my whole team works with me at Warriors Next Adventure. It's a nonprofit that I run, and we have a suicide hotline. We help veterans with PTSD, suicide prevention. And then I'm also a life coach because I don't have those fancy letters next to my name, and so I got to call myself a life coach. Woo! But what we do is we take vets on mountain climbs. We take vets to go race cars and play with wolves. We have a wolf sanctuary we partner with called Minnesota Wolf Dogs, and then we do mountain climbs. So we're already doing like a lot of like pretty extreme stuff, but it's safe. You know what I'm saying? So it's like helping veterans kind of get to that point where they get to that fight or flight again, and that's when you start talking about the traumas, right? So like, do you guys have any plans of, essentially trying to work on some mental health conversations between you guys while you guys are rowing, or what is your guys' plan for this row? Kind of an odd question, I know, but
Yeah, I think certainly I can speak for myself, and I think I might speak partially for Chris here, that Gareth is my counsellor as well, so
okay.
I think it's quite cool. One of the things we didn't constantly point out is in La Gomera that, because when the last year's race started, that actually we're rowing across an ocean with the man that saved our lives with his charity, which is quite a cool thing to be doing. But we're quite open about our mental health now, and we're quite open about saying to each other, look, you are getting on my nerves. You are really pushing all my wrong buttons. Because I think the therapy process that Gareth uses is NLP, neuro-linguistic programming.
That's exactly what I use. Super helpful.
Wonderful. Absolutely, it's wonderful. But it doesn't just deal with your traumatic events, but it just gives you all these tools that you can use day in, day out, whether it be at work, whether it be with your leadership style, whether it be with your family, be with your children. However, my family got quite annoyed when I used to say, well, actually, I'm not winding you up or really annoying you. You're actually choosing to be annoyed by me. And the family used to start really getting me upset with that. But
the ultimate throwback.
absolutely, but I think this bit where we're preparing each other to be able to have them open conversations and getting to know each other. When actually, I know for a fact that I know when Chris is cheesed off, and I can see the signs, and they can certainly see it with me as well. I think just picking up what you're saying about Phil and veterans, we've already got our apology letter written for his wife Lydia for when we get back, for the person that we're returning back to civilian life. Because I think Phil isn't necessarily used to the military way of, it's a bucket, we need to go in a bucket, there ain't no shame of it, so we just crack on and do it. And
well, the good thing is he's already rowed once, so he knows what he's getting into.
Yeah, but I think we might be a little bit less sort of like reserved.
I was in a mixed crew, so it's a little bit.
I think Phil's getting used to our sense of humour, which is particularly different to civilians. It's like you saying with your one nut and things like that. Is a lot of civilians wouldn't say that to each other. Whereas
I know they're like, "Oh my god, cancer," and all my vets are like, one nut. You know, and I always tell people like, "Yeah, I have cancer." They go, "Oh," I'm like, "No, I have the funny one."
Yeah.
I think it's going to be interesting to see how the guys all deal with the little things which irritate you big time. On the boat. At the end of the day, you're spending 40 or 50 days on the equivalent of like 2 double beds. There's no escape, and little things can get to you. And it's going to be interesting to see how everybody deals with that and make sure they're not built into big things. the one thing we sort of made sure that we tried to do, which was compromise. Realize that there's no point getting upset, getting annoyed, getting angry. You can't walk away, and you want to leave the boat having enjoyed the experience. So if things did go wrong, there was this case of, okay, suck it up for a bit, and then just say, look, you've got to compromise, mentally compromise. They're not quite, that person isn't quite like I am. Let's get on, let's move on. Let's not dwell on the problem. Let's not scratch the itch, if you like. So it'll be interesting to see how these guys, cope with that. Most likely with their training, they'll cope better than me, and I'll be the one who needs the counseling.
I think it'll probably turn into like just massive, shit talking between each other, but this is like, oh, it's just every day.
Yeah.
Like our team gets along so well. Like the three of us were deployed in Iraq together all four of us were deployed to Iraq together in 2008. Three of us were stationed together for, Will was only with us for 2 years. Me and Chad, who essentially has been like heading this whole thing up. He's the one that got us our title sponsor and everything. Chad and I were together for 6 years, deployed 4 times together. And then Tommy's like a great friend of mine. And then once I started Warriors Next Adventure, these guys have talked about it, so I don't mind saying this, but like Chad reached out to me and he's like, man, I'm not doing well. I'm like, well, dude, check out this nonprofit I'm getting ready to start. And he's like, dude, you don't know what you're doing, and then Chad climbed a mountain with me. And then shortly after, Tommy, who actually just commented here, so he can't wait to meet you guys in Lagomera. Tommy's one of my row partners. But Tommy reached out to me and he's like, man, I just like, we need to do something. Like, hey, we're climbing a mountain in Colorado. Can you help me plan this? And I've shared this before, but like when he reached out to me and essentially said like, dude, you gave me hope. You gave something to look forward to, right? That's what that's what I love, right? I like providing opportunities for people to essentially find themselves again. And then him and I rode the entire St. Croix River. It's only 155 miles, but still we did in 5 days. It's like 30 some miles a day. But ironically, the funny thing is I did a podcast with Bryant from Fight or Die, who was the founder. And I did the podcast as me and Will were planning the 155-mile canoe row. He called me shortly after. He's like, dude, we're worried about 155 miles and they did 3,000. Like, he's like, we need to do more. I'm like, let's do the St. Croix first. We'll go from there. And then 3 weeks later, we had a team for Fight or Die. It's like, why? I said no like 3 times. Like, it took Chad convincing to get me to go do this thing. I'm like, this is stupid. I still think it's stupid. I'm still doing it though. Go ahead, Jason.
Is it just picking up something you just said there that he said to you, dude, you don't know what you're doing when you're talking about you're setting up your non-profit?
Oh yeah, there's a lot of people like they're like, you have no idea what you're doing. I'm like, yeah, I've never started a business, but screw it.
But you've got the experience of being in that hall and why you're doing it, and then the inspirational bit. So people say to us, honestly, you don't know what you do with your own ocean. I said, well, no. First person that went on the moon didn't know what he was doing. The first person went on Everest didn't know what they were doing.
Exactly.
But what I have got is hope, and I've got this want to prove to people that you come from an addiction and poor mental health, and allow people to pick up, even just pick up 1 or 2 things. And when Phil was saying about people downloading to us and things like that, is we've already had people go through therapy with Veterans at Ease because they've met us in a field with a boat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it ain't about an ocean, is it? It's about helping this big family that we're in, and it's the same family that you're in as them. We are just we are the overseas cousins of your family over there.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much what it is. Like we're all serving the same purpose, And then I started Invoke Change, which is another organization that I run, because so many civilians were saying like, you need to get paid for what you do, because everything I do is I don't charge anybody. I don't make money. I'm a disabled vet, and like here we have the healthcare system where like I'm 80% disabled through the VA, so I get enough to survive, so I can run my nonprofit full time. Like I live in like a 700 square foot house, like I don't know over there, but over here it's a tiny house. But it's all I need, like it allows me to do my passion, and that's help other people find passion. Like it's the best thing in the world,
And it's even these people that you don't necessarily engage with. Is there'll be people watching this, there'll be people reading our posts that we will never ever meet,
Mm-hmm.
but they might get some hope and go, well, actually, if those guys can do it, if that guy can still smile when he's only got one ball, yeah, and that guy can still smile after a suicide attempt in 2015, and Jason can still smile after 10 years sobriety, and Chris can still smile after what he's been through when he left, and Phil can still smile after getting off the boat with 3 veterans. There's hope for anybody, isn't there? You know what I mean? It really is. And at any one time, I've got people that contact me, just say, normally starts off with, I'm asking for a friend. Normally after a couple of minutes conversation.
Not me, I'm perfect, but my friend.
Yeah, but normally after a couple of minutes conversation, the third person then disappears.
Yeah.
It's very apparent they are talking about themselves. It becomes very apparent straight away, normally, that they're talking about themselves. And I was at the event. We did an air show a couple of weeks ago, and this guy came up to me, and it was a guy that reached out. And I met him a few years ago, and I was into photography quite heavily, and I took some photographs of this guy at an arts festival. And we've become sort of like online friends, not seeing each other, but just talk to each other every now and again on Facebook and things like that. And he reached out to me last November, and he said, Jason, I'm at a position now I need help. And we talked online, and I said, well, I can't speak for every recovering alcoholic, but I can certainly share my experiences with you and things like that. Yeah. And he checked in, and at the air show, he came up to me looking fresh as a daisy, looking really well. And he put his arm around me, he says, I've not had a drink now since November.
That's beautiful, man.
I offered an ear. And I think that bit where you said earlier, it's this peer-to-peer or experience-to-experience support speaks more volumes than any person that just gets a college education or university education to become a counsellor or an addiction worker or whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
And certainly when the experience with Veterans at Ease is with it all being peer-to-peer. So Gareth,
talk a little bit about
right. So
sorry, talk a little bit about Veterans at Ease.
Yeah, so Veterans at Ease came about, as Phil said earlier. Gareth got poorly about 10 years after he left the military, which was about 14 years after he'd been in Bosnia. And he had issues with cold and various other bits and pieces. And it was a stage where he was going to end it. And his girlfriend at the time, I believe, suggested NLP, and he had to find a session. He paid £2,000 to do it. So you're talking sort of like $2,600 at the time for a day's session. And he drove to it. He had a 6-hour session, and it parked all his military PTSD and various other bits and pieces. As Gareth was driving away, he decreed that it was wrong that veterans should have to pay for it. And he decided that day he would retrain himself to become a psychotherapist and set up the charity. And he set up Veterans at Ease, and he's now helped nearly 500 veterans now to become to live a better life. And like I say, me and Chris are two of his beneficiaries. A couple of great statistics there. It's got an 80% success rate, thereabouts. But the 20% that it's not successful, it's not their right. They found out it's not their right time to receive NLP.
You can't force somebody to change. They have to want it, right? Because everything has to do with internal, right? You have to want something to help. I do not reach out to people and try to make them change, right? I will not do that. I don't chase people. They have to come to me.
Yeah, point the finger, you must change.
Yeah, exactly. The first thing you do is like, screw off, like get on my face. I'd love to talk to Gareth on another time too, because so for Warriors Next Adventure, I started after my suicide attempt. I started studying, like epigenetics, suicide, depression, neuroscience, like anything that. And I got really big into NLP about 2 years ago. And so essentially what I do is I tell people I manipulate people into wanting to be happy. Right? That's essentially what NLP is. You're tricking them to want a different desire and a different outcome. Once you want that different outcome, you can get it, right? We focus a lot on manifestation. Just create the future that you want, right? And this row what's it going to do for us, right? It's going to give us a lot of time to think. It's going to, our shoulders likely are going to be jacked. You know, but at the same time, like, what are you going to do with this afterwards? Have you guys thought about that?
I'm already preparing myself for. I expect I will go through a period of a drop period. Having lived and breathed this campaign now for nearly 3 years, I'm preparing myself for one hell of a thump back to earth after it.
Yeah.
I suspect there'll also be some soul searching as to where life goes with career and various other bits and pieces. And I know the other lads. So if any of the lads want to.
Yeah, I mean, I think the journey to the start line is really quite exciting. It has its highs and lows, and I don't know if in the US you have Snakes and Ladders board, which is a game, but it is Snakes and Ladders board. You have the success of when you get a sponsor. You have a down when someone doesn't maybe give the money they promised. You have a high when you have a good outing. You have a low when you're rescued by the Coast Guard, as I was on my first outing.
Oh no.
You have all these highs and lows, and you get to the start line and you're feeling, wow, I've made it. And then that first night you're on the boat, and in the middle of the night when it's 11 o'clock at night, you have to get up and row from 1 till 3, and then you have to get up again and row from 5 till 7, and you suddenly think, oh my god. And so you then have this highs and lows again, Snakes and Ladders of the whole race itself. Get to Antigua, massive high that first hour, and then you think, oh, is that all it was then? And for you, that's the danger that can happen. And what you've got to realize, I think, is that everybody else out there won't see it the same way you do. So you've got to feed off the way they feel, sometimes not the way you feel. And for me, it did lead to a little bit of a down. And
when you finished,
do it again, and now here I am doing it again because I'm wanting that upper again, if you like. Yeah. So there is a danger there. It certainly changed my life in terms of work. I went from running a business to deciding I didn't want to go back into engineering afterwards. And I'm now just starting up another business now. So yeah, it's a roller coaster ride. It's a way to describe it. I think, Jason's right. You've got to prepare yourself for, having that high, but also thinking, okay, it's, there is life afterwards, and you've got to think about how you're going to deal with that.
Yeah. What about you, Chris? What are you thinking?
To be fair, I'm not too sure. I'm in two minds whether I don't know what I'll do after is in, will I want to find something to try and better this, which to be fair, I don't think anything will be at the minute. or will I just want to think of and relax sort of thing? But I'm still I don't know how I'll take it, to be honest.
Sure. Yeah, and there's nothing wrong if you choose to just kind of take it easy, There's nothing wrong with that. I tell a lot of folks, I understand that I'm slightly crazy. I have to do things, right? And my problem was when I went to that point where I was extremely suicidal, I wasn't doing anything. I was just trying to hide from the world and seclude, right? And that's, I call it idle hand syndrome. When you're sitting there, next thing you know, you're just like, God, I should just kill myself and make it a lot easier, right? And the messed up part is I still have some of those thoughts, which is, it's unfortunate, but it's something that I'm kind of realizing that I'm probably just going to live with that the rest of my life, right? But then you just look at that, and you tell no, I got shit to do, right? And so I fill my schedule up just so I know that I have something to look forward to, right? There's a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Dr. Viktor Frankl. It's an absolutely amazing book. He was a World War II survivor. He was in the Holocaust. He was actually in Auschwitz. He's a psychotherapist, and he created what's called logotherapy. Logotherapy is essentially giving people hope, right? The people who died in Auschwitz, who obviously weren't murdered, they died from starvation or hunger, is because they essentially lost hope, right? They lost their purpose. I always have hope and purpose because I always have something to look forward to, because it's what's the next event. For me, it's a lot of the issue is, when you were saying, when you finish, you have that lull, that drop, right? A lot of people don't realize that it's a dopamine issue, right? A lot of people think you're going to get that dopamine release when you finish, right? But it's actually happening the whole time you're doing it. And so a lot of that has to do with mindset. You really start looking like, we're doing amazing things. We're doing amazing things. We're doing amazing things. Then afterwards, man, we did amazing things. What are we going to do next? You know, and to avoid that drop, I go straight to what am I planning next? You know, drives my family nuts because it's kind of hard for me to relax. But, you know, my relax time is usually at the gym, training jujitsu, strangling people. So it's called aggressive cuddling.
No idea.
Do any of you guys train?
Say again?
Do any of you guys train jujitsu?
No, we're all lovers, not fighters.
Yeah. Hey, jujitsu is called the gentle sport, you know. I mean, I've only broke my neck and all my fingers and, you know, a couple other things, but hey, it's gentle.
Yeah, you might get on quite well. There's an ex-Royal Marine that's rowing this year as well, called the Atlantic Grappler.
Oh, cool.
And he's I think he's quite high up in GB jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
It'd be quite cool for you to reach out to him.
Yeah. So the reason why I asked, there's an organization that's actually in the UK called Reorg. Have you ever heard of them?
Yes, I'm not sure what they do.
Reorg is essentially getting, you know, there's a nonprofit here in Minnesota, in the United States, that I work for called We Defy Foundation. And what they do is they pay for veterans to train jiu-jitsu for a full year, right? So if you're like, we have different levels of disability through the VA. And if you're 80% or more, you qualify for a full year scholarship in jiu-jitsu, which is amazing. Reorg is actually doing essentially the same thing, but in the UK. I think they're also in Australia. But like, if you guys ever wanted connections there, just let me know. Jiu-jitsu is one of the most amazing things. By the way, when we come to the UK, like, I don't know anything about the UK. I'm assuming is the awards ceremony in London?
It is, yeah.
It is? Okay. Yeah, it's like I want to do all the touristy stuff like Big Ben and stuff. I don't really know what to do, so I might be picking your guys' ears to figure out what we do.
I will gladly take some time off work and host you guys around London for a few days.
Awesome.
I used to work, one of the places I used to work, so the top where Buckingham Palace is, there's what used to be Admiralty Arch, which was obviously the centre of the Royal Navy. Yeah. And right at the top of there is a bunker, and I used to work in the bunker, and I spent a lot of time living and working in London for the military. So it's got Winston Churchill's war rooms and things like that. So yeah, there's
cool
stuff to, and I think one of the things that if you come to the Imperial War Museum, has got an absolutely amazing Holocaust permanent exhibition on the Holocaust, which is very sympathetically done and shows you the absolute horror that human beings can do to each other, which is quite an eye-opening but very worthwhile thing to go to as well.
Sure. I went to Pearl Harbor in Hawaii when I went there, and it's like that ship. There's still dead bodies in that boat. You know, like that's really messed up to think about it, but it lets you know, like, you know, those who, you know, what is it? Those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it. You know, so like stuff like the Holocaust Museum, stuff like that. Those things are important to let us know, like, this is the horror that happens if you don't actually, like, you know, what's the saying? It's
if we don't talk about history, it will repeat itself.
Oh, 100%. You know,
and there's three of us. Well, all four of us have been impacted one way or another from what human beings do to each other by not learning what human beings have done to each other.
Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of it we do to ourselves, you know. Like, a lot of my darkest stuff was all my fault, you know. And I like to get the message across that the sooner you realize that life is a choice and where you are in life is a result of your choices, the quicker people realize that, hey, if that's true, then I have the power to change everything. And that's the main focus that I do with WNA and with what we're trying to do with Fight or Die. We're not trying to raise awareness for veteran suicide, right? People know veterans are killing themselves, right? How do we stop it, right? We're the action portion. And, you know, I had a guy, like I said, reach out, oh, what's Rowing the Ocean going to do for veteran suicide? And I told him about the teams, right? When you have a team that score a field goal or a goal in soccer, you know, like, does not make you, it fills you with something, right? What is that? So that's essentially what we're trying to emulate, you know, and we're doing it for the veteran community. It makes me really happy to see that other countries are doing it too. You know, we served with a lot of the Brits, a lot of the Australians, and like, we always had good times. We actually had a bunch of British guys it was the British Army and a bunch of other groups down in southern Iraq in 2008. And we actually taught them how to make MRE bombs. You know what those are?
Yeah.
You take the heat packs and you put water in it, but you screw it in like a Gatorade bottle and you throw it and it blows up. It's a lot of fun. It's not good when they start teaching kids to do it, though. I was like, come on, guys, you're making us look bad. Hey guys, we only have a few more minutes here. I want each of you to kind of just go off for a minute and just kind of, tell everybody why you're doing this, how they can follow you. Go ahead, start with Jason.
Phil was gonna say something. Phil.
Oh, sorry, Phil. Go ahead.
You've obviously talked about some things to come and see. Sadly, you'll miss the cricket season when you come across the UK because that's not in the winter. And I'm sure you'd love to have spent 5 days watching cricket, from 11 in the morning till 7 in the afternoon. But there are other things to see rather than just war stuff. So I'm sure Jason will take you around some really interesting places and have a great experience across here.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So how can everybody follow you guys, and how can anybody, are you guys still raising funds right now?
Yeah, so we've raised about £110,000. So you're talking maybe $150,000.
Wow. It's amazing.
A lot of that is race fees, but the beauty is our boat's called Audrey, Oardrey, as in oar, and a rowing boat, Audrey. And we've got a buyer for her. They've paid a deposit, but the boat's owned by the charity.
Okay.
So the boat will be recycled, and she'll do the trip again in 2024 with another team that's rowing for charity. So yes, we're still raising funds. So we're on Facebook at Team Emotive. We're on we've got Instagram and we've got TikTok and various other bits and pieces. But us being fossils, we're not quite used to those ones yet. On LinkedIn. We have a website, www.team-emotive.co.uk. But Facebook is our most active one. With nearly.
Do you guys have a Facebook group so people can follow and join?
Yeah, Team Emotive. There's a picture of us standing by the boat. I think we've got nearly 2,000 followers now, just short of 1,800 followers.
All right, I'm gonna join the group. I'll give you another one.
I would say to anybody out there who's manufacturer of products, whether it's for American Air Force or for the British Army or even the Navy, Jason, any manufacturers, you supported the armed forces, when they're in service, you've made some profits out of it. It'd be great if you actually put those profits back into those people who served and who are veterans and who are going through challenging times. So get your hand in your pocket. And get it out there and give some money to these two good causes.
I love that. What about you, Chris?
I think most of it's all being covered apart from one thing. It's not weak to speak.
I love it. That's literally the best hashtag. I love it. I'm not going to steal it, but I love it.
you can use it because the more people that use the hashtag, it's not weak to speak. It's simple enough. And it isn't a weakness. Often people think it is, but it's, again, you talked about choices earlier.
Yeah.
You choose that it's not weak to speak and put your hand up and go, I need help. That's the moment you need your help, and you'll get it from wherever you look for it.
Well, hey guys, I got to drop you off and do my closing. Don't go anywhere. I'll talk to you in a minute. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Bye.
Wow. All right, guys, go check them out. Team Emotive, and then you can go check them out on Facebook, and then also check out Veterans at Ease. It's a British, essentially the same thing that we're doing with Warriors Next Adventure. He actually has some education, though. I don't. But yeah, so go check out what they're doing. We're all going to be meeting up in La Gomera, Spain, like the first week of December. So I'm excited to meet these guys. Excited to meet a bunch of other people too. As you all know, Warriors Next Adventure is one of the main nonprofits that benefits from the show. Go check out warriorsnextadventure.com and also go check out housesforwarriors.org, helping veterans with homelessness issues over in Colorado. Thanks again to KGRA Digital Broadcasting, and I will see you guys next week.
Perfect.